Welcome to our final project presentation entitled Aligning Incentives in Supply Chains, a case study on Cisco, presented by Sara Abu Hala, Sara Dabbous, Tariq Al Khayyat, and Asad Ghanem. On April 16, 2001, Cisco, the world's largest network equipment maker, informed its investors that it would soon scrap $2.5 billion of raw materials before reporting a net loss of $2.69 billion for the quarter. Now the question is, how could supply chain experts misread demand by $2.5 billion? Even though experts blamed the company's new forecasting software for misbehaving, the truth was that Cisco contractors stockpiled semi-finished products with the belief that demand for Cisco's products usually exceeds supply. They also boosted their profit margins by buying large volumes from component suppliers at lower prices than Cisco had negotiated. However, when demand slowed in the first half of fiscal 2000, Cisco found that it couldn't cut off supplies quickly. Consequently, the supply chain imploded as Cisco's partners were acting in ways that weren't in the best interests of the company or the supply chain. Now, it's tempting to ask, what was everyone thinking? Most companies don't worry about the behavior of their partners while building supply chains. Therefore, every firm behaves in ways that maximize its own interests, but companies assume wrongly that when they do so, they also maximize the supply chain's interests. Well, supply chains are expected to work efficiently without interference. However, recent researchers found that companies often didn't act in ways that maximized the network's profits, and as a result, supply chains performed poorly.
A supply chain network works well if its company's incentives are all aligned. That is, if the risks, costs, and rewards of doing business are fairly distributed across the whole network. Misaligned incentives can cause excess inventory, stockouts, inadequate sale efforts, incorrect forecasts, and even poor customer service. In other words, the fate of all supply chain members are usually interlinked. Many companies have fought and still fight with suppliers to get a bigger share of the pie, but they don't know that they can increase the size of the pie itself by aligning partners' incentives. If the companies work together to efficiently deliver goods and services to consumers, they will all win. If they don't, they will all lose to another supply chain. Now the question is, why do incentives get out of the line? In fact, when companies complain that their supply chain partners don't want to do what is in everyone's best interest, we can directly tell that incentives issues in supply chain have gotten out of the line. The first reason causing this misalignment is the inability of the companies to observe other firms' action, where they find it hard to persuade those firms to do their best for the supply chain network. Second, the asymmetry and lack of information in some firms of the supply chain network make it difficult to align all the companies' interests in the whole network. Now, a third and important reason is the bad design of the incentive schemes in some companies. When someone would think that increasing the stocks in the stores and keeping the shelves filled is the best way to increase the profit, where it is in fact causing a lot of losses due to excess inventory in the stores.
How to realign incentives. We can realign incentives in 3 stages. First and foremost, we need to acknowledge that there is an incentive problem to start with. Most companies find it hard to figure out the relationship between a problem in their supply chain and a problem in their incentives. Second, we need to trace and diagnose this problem. In most cases, the problem is mismatched goals. Finally, executives should realign or redesign these incentives to obtain the desired outcome. Aligning or redesigning incentives includes 3 main solutions. First, rewriting contracts. Second, revealing hidden information. And third, developing trust. Rewriting contracts. When incentives are caused by hidden actions, the best way to unveil them is through rewriting contracts with suppliers. This rewards and penalizes suppliers based on outcome. By changing how, rather than how much, they pay partners, companies can improve supply chain performance. When that happens, everyone in the chain makes more money. Although these seem like insignificant changes, but small changes in incentives can transform the supply chain quickly. This is why this method should be used before other approaches. Second, we can reveal hidden information by making these actions more visible. To do that, we need to track and monitor business variables. Another way to reveal hidden information is to hire mystery shoppers or use advanced information systems that help us track these business variables.
Company can sometimes use trust-based mechanism to prevent incentive problems from cropping up in supply chain, since firms are more likely to trust each other when their incentives are in line. Some of the trust problems can be described by the importers that are convinced that the vendors won't deliver on time, can produce consistent quality, and will give greater priority to the company that will pay higher prices. The vendor doubt also companies' abilities to predict consumer demand since the importer enter into contracts 6 to 9 months in advance of delivery. Under those circumstances, the presence of intermediary can help align incentives of the two parties. Before we give our recommendations, we have to mention two caveats. First, a solution that resolves incentive misalignment for one company might exacerbate the problem for another. Executives should therefore coordinate the interests of all the supply chain. Second, companies must align all the incentives of all the key decision makers in their supply chain. It is difficult for one company to change the incentives of executives in other organizations. It can point out possible misalignment to partners. After discussing Cisco incentives misalignment, we can conclude that companies should periodically study their supply chain because even the top performing networks find that changes into technology or business conditions. Firms can take 3 steps to facilitate discussions about misalignments. First, executives should conduct incentive audits whenever they adopt new technologies or enter new markets. Second, companies should educate managers about supply chains partners. Third, managers should examine case studies from other industries to well understand the whole supply chain. Finally, it is so important to mention that whenever we share information in the supply chain, we will be able to perform business and data analysis, then deliver the correct quantity, sign clear contracts, determine the correct buyback, and provide quantity discount, create quantity flexibility contracts, and price protection. This will maximize the profit in the whole supply chain and protect the suppliers and retailers. Thank you.